Welcome to another weekend here on the platform. My name is Sam Omashaye. Welcome to Big Talk on the platform. I have a special guest today. He's no other than Adams Oshiomhole, the chairman of the All Progressive Congress of the nation. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
There are two events that happened recently that interested the public. It happened in your home state, Edo, and it happened in Bauchi, where one is APC, one is PDP,
Exactly.
where what we have is just gathered a few people and then you appoint people into offices. Yes, yes.
Well, Sam, this is interesting. First, it's a bit humiliating for me as a national chairman coming from Edo State that my state is involved in this, as you mentioned. But the truth is the truth. If it is wrong for PDP to do something, it cannot be right for APC to do the same thing. So our attitude, as you saw from our statement yesterday, is that it is not for nothing. You just mentioned rubber stamp legislature now. I think in opting for presidential system, Nigeria wanted to have strong executive, but they also know the danger that what defines a democracy is the presence or absence of a legislature. Because think about it. In the military, you always have executive, who is the head of state. The judiciary has always been there. What disappears is the parliament. And therefore, the military rulers will say, I hereby decree as follows.
So they made the laws.
They made the laws. Sometimes they even went ahead to interpret the law when they set up military tribunals. So the real thing about democracy is that debate. And it is not for nothing that under the Constitution, you find that it's only in the parliament that every letter is read on the floor. When you write a letter to the governor or to the president, he reads it in the comfort of his office and he might even put mark secret. But that of the parliament is open and it must be announced publicly and it will be debated. So, I mean, it's unfortunate what has happened in Bauchi and in Edo State. And it is not the finest thing I want to talk about, but we have to condemn what happened in the two states, which shows that, yes, we have our political party differences, but we are also having a commitment to ensuring that we do not, as a party, endorse what is wrong, merely because it's done by part of or a section of our party. No. And today, yesterday we issued a statement to that effect, and I have briefed the president about what has happened. In Edo, 6 people, with 3 men who said they were invited for an informal conversation, which is why one of them went in shorts, and then they were wished to the House of Assembly at 9:30 p.m. Now, the rules of the House tells us the sitting hours of the House. And those bylaws made by the House can only be amended by a sitting House. So in inaugurating a House, you must fall back on the existing rules. Those rules prescribe when the House sits. Number 2, proclamation of the House is not a state secret. It's a public proclamation that must be made by the executive, stated date and time, and it must be read to the floor and announced in advance and made known to all members elect, which was why President Muhammadu Buhari made his proclamation 4 days or 5 days before the House was inaugurated, so that everybody, including those who might have traveled, have enough time, if they choose, to return so that they participate on that occasion. And as you can see, he didn't have to wait until every senator agreed to support a particular candidate that we think will provide a better leadership before issuing the proclamation. After issuing it, we were still working, persuading, negotiating, and doing what we have to do both behind the scene and in front of cameras to ensure that APC is not divided. The name of the game is persuasion, and this is one area where the president does not have power to impose. But if he has the courage, he commands the respect, as he does, within the APC family. When he say, please, this, people will. And as you can see, if you watch all the television, you will not see where the president said, this is the person I want. No. You probably would have seen me saying it. Yes. But we all have conversations. We have party leaders who we have to work with, who had, meetings with members, hours on them. But at the end of the day, when a particular senator elect said, I will contest, we couldn't stop him. Now, the president, don't forget, Nigerians like to remind us each time they mention president, they will say president and commander-in-chief. And I always think that the addition is unnecessary because it is implied. In a democracy, in our choice of democracy, our president is the commander-in-chief. But as commander-in-chief, he could have commanded the armed forces to prevent the other senator from being available on election day. So that he doesn't attend the inauguration, and therefore the question of voting for him or nominating will not arise. If somebody nominates him, he will not be there to accept the nomination as required by law. But because we are in a democracy, he was there. We persuaded him, he refused. He went in, he was nominated by opposition candidate, seconded by opposition candidate. They went on secret ballot. In the end, he got 27 votes, and he was sufficiently humbled. That is the way it works. So we have our way, he has his way. And I think what he said, at least he has forced us to negotiate. Force the system to work. Otherwise, there will be no voting, which is true. So, that is what you have to do. The system does not allow you to impose. Now, to go and hold, to proclaim a house at 9:30 p.m., what Supreme Court called nocturnal hours for a parliament, that is unfortunate. And in Bauchi, is also revealing. Now, the governor, PDP, has 8 members in the House of Assembly. APC has 21. And NNPC or whatever has 1. So of a 31-member house, APC has 21 members. 22 members.
Overwhelming majority.
Which is no more than 2/3.
Yeah, that's overwhelming majority. Yeah.
2/3 majority. No, overwhelming is a bit subjective. In this case, we can even be more categorical. More than 2/3, because 2/3 of 30 is 20. Now 2/3 of 31 would be 20 plus. But based on what definition of a state, it's a human being. Yes. It has you can't cut off and So now the governor wants to have a speaker of his choosing in a house that is dominated by opposition. And to achieve that, unfortunately, he has to employ the services of people who are supposed to enforce the law, police, to aid and abet an unlawful act. That for me is disgusting, just like it's disgusting in Edo State. And that's why we said so. And I believe that at the end of the day, the remedy is to do it properly. And we will ensure that it is properly done according to law in both states. Because we are not at liberty to run the state based on our whims and caprices. It's a pity that it has happened also in an APC state. But one thing about dangerous precedent is that look at what happened in 2015 when the former Senate president went into alliance with PDP and produced and compromised an APC post. Yeah. Look at what it takes us to correct that mischief. People now say, it's constitutional. Yes, but countries are not run only by the express provision of constitution. There are norms, there are normative values that are even more stronger. And that is why you find that a British parliamentarian is accused of making a false claim of £10,000 over a period of 2-3 years. And rather than go through the rigor of prosecution of proving himself innocent, he said, whereas I have reservation about this allegation, but questions have been raised about my integrity. Therefore, I resign as an MP. That is not law now. That is norms, values. Nigeria must move to that. But if we allow this to stand, tomorrow, even those who are part of this arrangement, They may want to pass a law. The governor want to pass a law. The president want to pass a law, and it's not sure that majority will support it. Then you can decide that, okay, come midnight, we will give you security. We pay the police. They will give you security. Put floodlight. You will see it, and 10 of you will pass this law, and we will say you form a quorum. Let them go to court. So I can see, as they say, you tell one lie, you need a series of lies to support that lie. I believe in a day I'm confident that we will solve it as a family. In the case of Bauchi, it's not a family issue because it's between APC and PDP. But in both cases, the wishes of majority must prevail and the rule of law must prevail.
The last time we were on this show, we had not had election. And we promised that we'll meet again after the election, win or lose. It looks like you have won, not once and not twice, in the process of our electoral combats. How will you run down what happened to and after the elections?
Yeah, well, first we thank God for everything. It was a huge challenge because it's a lot easier when you are not in office to amplify what is not right. It's more challenging to defend the policies you put in place. And unfortunately, as a governing party, when you inherit the kind of economy that we inherited and the kind of political environment that prevailed, the measures you put in place to try to revive the economy have their own gestation period before they begin to manifest. Sometimes the first attempt was to try to hold the drink before. Now in the process, a lot of people will say, why things have not changed overnight? And so we knew that we had a tough electoral battle in our hands. Try to let people understand. And as I said, to God be the glory that majority of Nigeria still repose confidence in the All Progressive Congress by voting massively for President Muhammadu Buhari. And as you can see, the difference between him and his first runner-up was almost 4 million. Last time it was almost 3 million. So he had more votes, in relative terms, relative to those of his opponents. So we thank God and we are very appreciative of Nigerians, their patience and their understanding. We're also happy that at the National Assembly level, we recorded more members in the Senate in 2019 than we had in 2015. And we also clearly have more members, almost 227 members in the House of Reps. No, 232 members in the House of Reps out of 360, which is almost to 10 majority, again, much more than we had in 2015. And so we cannot thank Nigerians enough for reposing confidence, for reposing trust, in spite of the fact that no one can claim that we have solved all the problems. The best we can say is that it is work in progress. We can say that the worst is over and the future belongs to the people. But also quite outstanding is the fact that I believe this time around we've learned a couple of things from some of the things we didn't quite manage well in 2015 as a political party, which led to the endless crisis between the National Assembly and the executive, as if the National Assembly was dominated by opposition. It was opposition in spirit, but APC in name, because unfortunately the leadership was the one that decamped at the last minute from PDP to APC. So they brought aboard PDP hat, which is a conservative hat, to superintend over a National Assembly that ought to be dedicated to providing the legislative environment necessary to drive the changes that APC promised. And that explains the endless tension and even the distortion in terms of public policy choices, and to the extent that legislative backing was required, or even the way in which the appropriation laws never reflected the executive will. And the fact that for much of the 4 years, budgets were passed half 6 months into the year. So this time we've learned from those lessons, and I'm happy that just through constructive engagement, persuasion, negotiation, and all of that, we are able to get our distinguished senators elect and honorable members of the House of Rep to work together and to provide a leadership that can be said to be one that, the various shades of opinion within the party can own up to as our own leadership that we all endorse after relevant groundwork. And again, unlike 2015, where some people smuggled themselves into the parliament, this time we saw a parliament that voted peacefully, secret ballot is part of court order, and to the contrary, and we saw an outstanding achievement that APC Senate President, the preferred candidate, emerged, and without subverting democracy, those who insist that he will contest, like one senator insisted on doing, he exercised his right, and the people have their way in favor of what the party wanted. When I say the party, I mean all strata of the party. We had consultation both vertically and horizontally. And so both in the two arms of the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Rep, I mean, it couldn't have been better that we have what I call 4/4. In the case of the president, we had 4+4. And in the National Assembly, we achieved 4/4, and I'm very excited about those outcomes.
Well,
and it shows that, democracy is deepening.
Yeah. People have said, well, the APC won the presidential elections, and that was a good thing, and it was not so much, by a certain reckoning. They said, it was not so much that it was because they loved the APC presidential candidate, Muhammadu Buhari, more, but that PDP did not get a better choice, and that Buhari won by default.
Well, that is exactly at the heart of politics. Nothing is absolute. Everything is relative. I said so to people that on a good day, there is no bad man, nor is there a good man. But when you compare, even in the world of robbers, of thieves, some are more notorious than others. Like somebody will say, you rather have a pickpocket than to have an armed robber. For pickpocket will let you to go, armed robber can take your property and take your life. So it's about comparison. Not only in terms of APC and PDP or Buhari versus Atiku. In every election, the electorate are always faced with the choice of comparing one candidate to the other or one party to the other. So not only this election. So I think that people are like, this is the one we know. At least there's something we can say for this president. Nobody has said that this president is corrupt. And for a country that is bogged down with huge issues of corruption, that is a big issue. It's a big issue. And on that platform, we maximize on that. Yeah. So I can never think of any election, Sam, that it will always be about comparing one person to the other, comparing one party to the other.
So it is relative, not absolute. What people were saying was not so much that you're comparing one to the other. They were saying that they were both bad candidates, and one. Even if you want to,
I'm not sure that I agree with you on that. But even if you were to use the unfair classification of bad, something can be bad, and yet some other thing can be worse. So, however you put it, one was better than the other. It depends on your choice of words. Whether you say one was worse than the other, as you prefer to put it, or I will say one was better than the other.
So Shakespeare said that nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So
I can add more.
You can add more. Well, people also say that, the state of the country, you made a point about, we cannot get the economy working overnight. People have consistently said that the APC as a party, its leadership and that of the government, they are emphasizing corruption at the expense of the economy, which is putting bread and butter on the table.
No, but it's a poor comparison. It is not a choice between working on the economy and fighting corruption. They are inseparable, because if you choose to marry, I don't know in medical terms, somebody of the same blood group, and you end up with sickle cell babies, you'll be producing and they'll be dying. So the question will be, does it make sense? You are counting the number of children you have given birth to, but none is alive. So the economy can't work if the fruit of growth is stolen by a few. So it's not a choice. It's not that you have to do one and let the other one wait. You can pursue them, and I think what we promised to do was not to pursue one at the expense of the other. You pursue them simultaneously. In any case, it is difficult, if not impossible, for example, to achieve sustainable growth and development, attract domestic and foreign investors if you don't eliminate corruption in the system. For example, no foreigner will come and establish a business if he's not sure of the justice system in case there's a commercial dispute. Property rights, and that those rights are enshrined in the law, which attracts him in the first instance to come. Yes. That he cannot go to court if they are changed or infringed upon, and he gets justice. Yes. So corruption, eliminating corruption, is by itself an incentive to sustainable economic growth and development. It is not that you can fight one and the rest of the other. Yeah. In any case, we didn't promise we will fight corruption first, economy second, then security third. No, we didn't rank them. We just articulated what we thought were at the heart of the problem. But at the end of the day, they are all interwoven. Now, you are not going to be able to attract investment without security. Because, let me use this word in a rather positive sense. Investors are cowards. They don't run to war zone to invest. That's right. So to attract them, they must feel safe and secured. The people, labor, which I like to think I still represent, they are more productive if they can feel safe, sleep well, wake up, go to their workplace and come back without fear that somebody might attack them or attack their families. So security is also important. In fact, it's a precondition. And if you do not have sustainable economic growth, or what I call preferably job-led growth, not just growth. I'm looking at the character of that growth. Is it job-driven? Is it employment-driven? Or is it just growth for statistics for few people who benefit from growth? Now, if you have a job-led growth that creates jobs for people, now that takes more people away from idleness to being busy. That by itself can also have impact on your security challenges. Because to be honest, there's no way you can find a simply military solution to your security challenges without addressing the issue of the economy and the capacity of the economy to create not just jobs, but good and well-paying jobs. And of course, corruption is something that there are many Nigerians, I believe, as well as certainly obvious foreigners, who can't pass through a bureaucracy that is hopelessly corrupt. If you have to pay, the rules are clear, but to get your way through those rules, to navigate through, you are not sure of the cost. On paper, you have to pay 1 naira for X, but even to get the paper, you have to spend 2 naira to buy the paper. So all three are critical. And I think our president summarized it very eloquently when he said, those issues we raised in 2015, we admit they are just as valid in 2019, and they will always remain valid. The challenge of fighting corruption has to be sustained. Our responsibility as a people to ensure that we achieve a level of economic growth that is higher than our population growth is a precondition to fighting and eliminating poverty. If your population is growing almost at 3% and your economy is growing at 2%, obviously you can only get poorer and poorer. You have to grow at least 2, 3, 4, 5% over and above your population growth rate for more prosperity to be generated, to take care of the additional amount that you have to feed, and for people to experience a better quality of life, at least in terms of the greatest number of our citizens. So I think that whatever anybody wants to say, there's no overemphasizing the fact that we have to do a couple of things differently this time around. We must fix power, we must find solution to it.
What's going to be different?
Everything has to be done differently. For example, I believe, now this is my view, I believe that we need to revisit certain economic fundamental, basic infrastructure. Now, power, 4 years down the line, we can't continue in the way it has been. No. I want to believe that going forward, we need to review whether these present policies are working. I have my huge reservation because PDP created it, we inherited it.
You are talking about the second. You are talking about the structure of the discos and the structure of the gencos and all of that.
The way they were privatized and the capacity of those who bought them and the way they are managed and all that. The distortion between, when you hear we are generating X, but we can't transmit. Yes. It doesn't require, it's common sense. Why should you be able to, you should be able to transmit. No one should tell you that there's food in the kitchen, but sorry, we are not able to take it to the dining table.
The key
if the food is just in the kitchen, and now I don't have access to the kitchen, I'm leaving to the dining table, you can't get it there, it's a story. So I think there are a couple of things we need to do differently.
Just before the program ends, I continue in a series of my poems Friday with Leah Sharibu.
I never heard your voice once. Husky, contralto, musical, a haunted bass, but we hear you outside, a scream, at once mellifluous and menacing, like the birth cry of a day-old chick, into our earlobes, loud enough to fill your void.
Thank you for watching the program. You can catch up with me on my published column on www.samomashaye.com. Also follow me on Twitter. My handle is @samomashaye. And until next time, be good.